He was born into poverty. He dropped out of school at 15. At 26, he was broke, in debt, and working a dead-end job, convinced that the life he dreamed of was reserved for other people. Then someone handed him a book, a single book, and within a year, he had gone from earning $4,000 a year to over $175,000. Within a few more years, he was a millionaire. His name was Bob Proctor. But here is the part that most people get wrong when they hear that story. They assume the turnaround was about strategy, about hustle, about finding the right opportunity at the right time. They think it was luck or talent or the mysterious collision of circumstance. They are wrong. Bob Proctor himself was relentless in saying so, over and over again, for 6 decades. He stood in front of audiences around the world and said the same thing. The change happened in his mind first. The money came second. The results, every single result in his life, were the downstream consequence of an upstream shift in thinking. He didn't just believe that. He studied Italiano. He traced it back to the work of Napoleon Hill, to Wallace D. Wattles, to the principles that the world's greatest thinkers had been pointing to for centuries. And then he decoded it. He turned it into a method, a repeatable, teachable, transferable mental system for creating financial prosperity, not by chasing money, but by becoming the kind of person money flows toward. That method is what you are about to learn. Not motivation, not inspiration, a method. Pay close attention, because what Bob Proctor discovered could change the entire trajectory of your financial life. Most people spend their entire lives trying to change their financial results while leaving their minds completely untouched. They work harder. They switch jobs. They follow trends, copy strategies, take courses, and chase opportunities. And yet, year after year, the numbers on their bank statements look strangely familiar. The struggle persists. The ceiling holds. Bob Proctor spent over 60 years studying why that happens, and more importantly, how to break through it. His answer was not complicated, but it was radical. He taught that your financial results are not determined by the economy, your education, your background, or the opportunities available to you. They are determined by your paradigm, the cluster of habits, beliefs, and mental programs that operate mostly beneath your conscious awareness. Until that paradigm changes, nothing else does. Not permanently. This video is a deep exploration of Bob Proctor's mental method for financial prosperity. It is built on the foundational teachings he spent a lifetime developing, refining, and delivering to millions of people across the globe. Whether you are struggling financially, comfortable but stuck, or already successful and hungry for the next level, these principles apply to you. We will walk through 7 core chapters. Each one addresses a different layer of the mental architecture that either supports or sabotages your financial life. Together, they form a complete framework, from understanding the paradigm that is currently running your financial reality, to reprogramming it through specific, proven mental disciplines, to developing the consciousness required to sustain wealth, not just earn it. Bob Proctor was fond of saying that most people are not poor because they lack opportunity. They are poor because they are not yet in a mental state that corresponds with abundance. And the beautiful, empowering truth at the heart of everything he taught is this: the mental state can be changed. The paradigm can be shifted. And when it does, the outer world, including the financial results, must change with it. That is the promise of this method, not a get-rich-quick scheme, not a motivational pep talk, a structured, disciplined, and deeply effective way of working with your own mind to bring financial prosperity into your life and keep it there. Let us begin. Before Bob Proctor could teach anyone how to build wealth, he first had to help them understand what was blocking it. And the answer, he always cited, begins with a single word: paradigm. A paradigm is not just a belief. It is a multitude of habits, a mental program installed over years of repetition, environment, and emotional conditioning. It runs automatically, below the level of your conscious thinking, and it governs virtually everything you do with money. Think about the people who win the lottery and lose everything within 2 years. Their outer circumstances changed dramatically, but their paradigm did not. The mental program that said money is scarce, wealth is for other people, or I don't deserve this simply reasserted itself and brought their financial reality back into alignment with their internal set point. Bob Proctor taught that every person has a financial thermostat, an internal standard that their subconscious mind works to maintain. When your income rises above that standard, something mysterious happens. You make bad decisions, lose the money, or self-sabotage without even realizing it. The thermostat is not punishing you. It is simply restoring the temperature it was set to. The paradigm was not chosen consciously. It was inherited. It came from your parents' relationship with money, from the financial conversations you overheard growing up, from your culture, your religion, your early experiences of lack or abundance. By the time you were 7 years old, most of your core money beliefs were already installed, and most of them were not installed by you. Here's the good news that Bob Proctor proclaimed without reservation. A paradigm that was installed can be reinstalled. A mental program that was written can be The brain is not fixed. The subconscious is not a permanent vault. It is a remarkably responsive instrument, but it responds to specific inputs, applied with consistency and intention. The first step in Proctor's method is simply awareness. You cannot change a program you cannot see. This means taking an honest inventory of your financial beliefs. What do you actually think about money? Not what you want to think, but what your gut says. What did your parents model? What stories do you carry about wealthy people? About debt? About your own financial worthiness? Many people discover in this step that they hold deeply contradictory beliefs. They consciously want wealth, but subconsciously believe that rich people are corrupt, or that wanting money is greedy, or that they are not smart enough, disciplined enough, or lucky enough to have it. The subconscious always wins that argument. Always. Bob Proctor was direct about this. You cannot outturn yourself for me. You can hustle, grind, and sacrifice, and you may achieve short-term gains, but without paradigm change, those gains will erode. The inner story always catches up with the outer results. He also taught that paradigms operate in both directions. Just as a negative paradigm can keep you in poverty, despite your efforts, a prosperity paradigm can attract wealth seemingly without effort, because every decision, habit, and intuition begins to align with abundance rather than against it. The work, then, starts here, with seeing the paradigm clearly, honestly, and without judgment. Not to condemn yourself for what was installed without your permission, but to take full responsibility for what gets installed from this day forward. That is where power begins. Bob Proctor's teaching was deeply rooted in a principle that modern science and ancient wisdom both point toward. Everything is energy. Your thoughts are energy. Money is energy. And energy operates on frequencies, like radio signals seeking compatible receivers. The frequency you consistently vibrate on determines what you attract, notice, and move toward. This is not mysticism for its own sake. Proctor grounded it in practical reality. When a person is locked in a consciousness of lack, when their dominant thoughts are about what they don't have, what they fear losing, what they can't afford, they are broadcasting a frequency, and that frequency shapes the decisions they make, the people they attract, and the opportunities they recognize or overlook. He used the phrase thinking into results deliberately. Most people think about results. They observe what they have, and they think thoughts consistent with that observation. Proctor taught the opposite. You must first think the result into being in your mind with emotional conviction, and then trust the process that makes it physical. This requires understanding the relationship between the conscious and subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the creative mind. It can originate thought. The subconscious mind is the emotional mind. It cannot tell the difference between a real experience and a vividly imagined one. When you repeatedly hold an image of financial prosperity in your conscious mind with strong feeling, the subconscious begins to accept it as reality. What happens next is what Proctor called the shift in vibration. Your subconscious starts aligning your behavior, intuition, and perception with the image it has accepted. You notice opportunities you previously walked past. You make bolder decisions. You speak differently. You carry yourself with a different energy, and other people feel it. The practical application is this: you must develop a clear, specific image of your desired financial reality, not a vague wish, a precise picture. What is the number? What does your life look like at that level? Where do you live? What do you do with your time? The brain needs specificity to work with. Proctor taught his students to hold that image in their minds deliberately, repeatedly, and emotionally, especially first thing in the morning and last thing at night, when the subconscious is most receptive. This is not daydreaming. It is disciplined mental work. He also warned against contaminating the image with doubt. Doubt is simply a competing image, a picture of the undesired outcome. Every time you entertain doubt, you weaken the signal you are sending. Prosperity consciousness requires mental discipline, the consistent choice to return to the image of abundance, even when outer evidence contradicts it. This is where most people quit. The gap between the inner image and the outer reality creates discomfort. What? Proctor called creative tension. That tension is not a sign that the method is failing. It is the energy of transformation. It means the shift is in progress. The frequency of abundance is not something you achieve once and keep forever. It is something you practice daily, moment by moment, thought by thought, until it becomes your dominant vibration and prosperity becomes your natural state. Bob Proctor was one of the most passionate advocates for goal setting in the world of personal development. But his approach to goals was unlike anything most people had encountered. He didn't just teach people to set goals they believed were achievable. He taught them to set goals that terrified them. Goals so large that their current self had no idea how to reach them. He called these C-type goals. Goals that require you to become a different, expanded version of yourself in order to achieve them. Most people set goals within the boundary of what they already know how to do. Those are A-type goals: comfortable, incremental, and ultimately incapable of producing transformation. Proctor wasn't interested in those. The reason a goal should feel impossible, he explained, is precisely because it forces you to grow. A goal you already know how to achieve does not require a paradigm shift. A goal that seems unreachable by your current self demands that you evolve, and it is in that evolution, not in the arrival, that the real value of goal setting lies. In financial terms, this means selecting a number that makes your current self uncomfortable, not reckless, but genuinely stretching. If you currently earn $50,000 a year, a goal of $55,000 does not require a new version of you. A goal of $500,000 does. Proctor taught a specific goal writing discipline. Write the goal in the present tense, as though it is already happening. Write it with emotional language. Write it by hand, and read it aloud, morning and night, with full feeling and conviction. The subconscious responds to repetition and emotion, not logic. He was equally clear that the goal must be written, not merely thought. The act of writing engages the brain differently. It signals commitment. It moves the goal from the abstract realm of possibility into the physical realm of intention. Something shifts when the pen meets the paper. Many of his students resisted this process because it felt like lying to themselves, affirming something that wasn't yet true. Proctor would smile at that objection and say, "All truth was once a lie in the mind of someone who hadn't yet believed it. Every building was once a fantasy. Every fortune was once a dream that someone dared to claim in advance." He also taught the importance of not sharing your goals indiscriminately. The people around you, even those who love you, are often anchored in the same paradigm you are trying to escape. Their doubt can contaminate your belief before the new image has time to take root. Review and revision of the goal is equally important. As you grow, your relationship with the goal changes. What once terrified you begins to feel inevitable. That is the signal to reach further, to set the next goal that stretches you again. The financial goal is not the destination. It is the telescope. Through it, you see a version of yourself that does not yet exist, and the act of looking through it, day after day, with unwavering intention, begins to call that version of yourself into being. Bob Proctor often said that the law of attraction, which most people have heard of, is actually a secondary law. The primary law, the one that makes the law of attraction work, is the law of vibration. Everything in the universe, at its most fundamental level, is in constant motion. Nothing rests, everything vibrates, and your mind is no exception. Every thought you think produces a vibration in your mind and body. That vibration reaches outward, not metaphorically, but literally, and interacts with the vibrational frequencies of everything around you. Like frequencies. Attract like frequencies. This is not spiritual opinion. This is physics applied to human consciousness. Money, in this framework, is not a physical object to be chased. It is a symbol of value, and value operates on a frequency. People who consistently create and sustain wealth are not doing so by working harder than everyone else. They're doing so by consistently operating on a vibrational frequency that is compatible with the flow of money and value. Proctor pointed to the observable difference between people who seem to attract money effortlessly, the entrepreneur who turns every idea into profit, the professional who always seems to find the right opportunity, and those who struggle despite their efforts. The difference, he insisted, is not intelligence or luck. It is vibration. It is consciousness. Building money consciousness requires a deliberate practice of elevating your dominant vibrational state. Gratitude is one of the most powerful tools for this. Not gratitude as a performance, but genuine, felt appreciation for the wealth already present in your life, your health, your relationships, your capacity to think and choose and create. Proctor also taught that the way you handle money matters enormously. If you treat money with contempt, complaining about bills, resenting those who have more, feeling anxious, every time you look at your bank account, you are broadcasting a frequency of repulsion toward money. You are literally vibrating it away. Instead, he encouraged students to develop a loving, respectful relationship with money, to bless it as it goes out, to receive it with gratitude when it comes in, to speak about it with appreciation rather than anxiety. These are not affectations. They are vibrational calibrations. He often referenced the work of Dr. David Hawkins, who mapped human emotions on a scale of consciousness. Fear, shame, and guilt vibrate at the lowest frequencies. Love, joy, and peace vibrate at the highest. The emotions most commonly associated with financial struggle, fear of lack, shame about debt, guilt about wanting more, are precisely the frequencies that block prosperity. Elevating your emotional frequency is therefore not a luxury or a pleasant add-on to financial strategy. It is the strategy. It is the foundational work that makes every outer action more effective. The science of money consciousness is the science of deliberately choosing, moment by moment, the emotional and mental state that is compatible with abundance and refusing to let temporary outer circumstances drag that state back down into fear. One of the most misunderstood aspects of Bob Proctor's teaching is his perspective on service. He did not teach that you simply think about money and it appears. He taught that wealth is the natural result of rendering service, of providing genuine value to other people and to the world. The mind is the engine, but service is the vehicle. He was fond of quoting Earl Nightingale, who said, "Your rewards in life will always be in exact proportion to your service, not your effort, not your intentions, your service, the actual value you create and deliver to others. This is a law as reliable as gravity. In practical terms, this means asking a different question than most people ask. Instead of, how can I make more money? The prosperity-minded question is, how can I be of greater service? How can I solve a bigger problem? How can I create more value for more people? The money is the answer to that question, not the question itself. Proctor observed that most people approach their work with a wage mentality, doing as little as they can get away with for as much as they can get. This is not a moral judgment. It is a paradigm operating in reverse. It creates a frequency of scarcity because it withdraws value rather than contributing it. The prosperity paradigm inverts this completely. It asks, how can I give more? How can I make my contribution so extraordinary that the world cannot help but reward it? This shift in orientation, from taking to giving, is one of the most powerful frequency changes a person can make. Bob Proctor built his own extraordinary wealth on this principle. He was not a passive teacher who simply showed up and recited material. He was obsessively committed to transformation, to making sure that the people who heard his message actually changed. That level of service created a level of value that the world rewarded enormously. Service also expands your sense of when you see yourself as someone who contributes meaningfully. Whereas work genuinely matters to other people, and since income almost never exceeds self-image, expanding it through service is one of the most direct paths to financial growth. Proctor taught that money is the harvest, and service is the seed. You cannot reap what you have not sown, but if you sow generously, consistently, and without resentment, if you give your best with full faith that the universe is a fair and abundant system, the harvest will come. It must come. It is law. This principle also liberates you from the trap of resentment and competition. When you understand that your prosperity depends on your service, not on someone else's failure, the entire competitive mindset dissolves. There is more than enough value to be created, and more than enough prosperity available for everyone who commits to creating it. True financial prosperity, in Bob Proctor's teaching, is never just about you. It is about the difference you make, the lives you change, the problems you solve, and the beautiful paradox is this: the more deeply you commit to serving others, the more abundantly the prosperity flows back to you. Bob Proctor had a term for the invisible wall that stops most people from ever reaching a new level of financial success. He called it the terror barrier. It is the moment, always just before a breakthrough, when fear rises so powerfully that it masquerades as reason and turns people back toward the familiar. Everyone who has ever tried to build wealth has met the terror barrier. It shows up as the hesitation before the investment, the doubt before the bold decision, the paralysis before the launch. It disguises itself as prudence, patience, or practicality. In reality, it is simply fear of the unknown. Proctor taught that the terror barrier is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that you are on the edge of genuine growth, that your current self is about to be replaced by an expanded self. The discomfort is not danger. It is transition. And the only way through it is through it. Most people retreat at the terror barrier and call it wisdom. They find 10 logical reasons why now is not the right time, why the opportunity is too risky, why they need more information before acting. And they go back to their comfort zone, which is really just a familiar level of financial limitation that their paradigm has decided is safe. Proctor was unsparing about this. Every time you retreat from the terror barrier, you reinforce the paradigm. You teach your subconscious that fear is a valid reason to stay small. And the next time the terror barrier appears, and it will appear, it'll be a little harder to push through. The alternative is not recklessness. Proctor was not advocating for blind leaps without thought or preparation. He was advocating for action in spite of fear, moving forward with the goal clearly in mind, even when the body is shaking and the mind is screaming caution. He taught a simple but powerful distinction. The feeling of fear and the fact of danger are not the same thing. Fear is a vibration, a signal from the subconscious that the territory ahead is unfamiliar. It is not evidence that the territory is deadly. Most of what people fear financially, rejection, failure, embarrassment, is survivable. More than survivable. It is instructive. Building the habit of action in spite of fear is, in itself, a paradigm shift. Every time you push through the terror barrier, you prove to your subconscious that you are capable of more. Your self-image expands, your comfort zone and the next financial goal, the one that once seemed impossible, begins to feel within reach. Proctor also taught that purpose is the greatest antidote to fear. When your goal is connected to something larger than personal gain, when it is tied to your family, your mission, your contribution to the world, fear loses much of its power. Purpose does not eliminate fear, but it makes the goal more important than the fear. The terror barrier is, in the end, the final guardian of every new level of financial life. It stands at every threshold, every upgrade, every breakthrough. Learning to recognize it, name it, and walk through it anyway is not a skill of the fearless. It is the defining skill of the financially prosperous. One of the most important and often neglected parts of Bob Proctor's teaching is what comes after the financial breakthrough. Many people achieve a new level of success, only to watch it erode, not because the strategies failed, but because their consciousness was not yet prepared to sustain what it had created. Earning money and keeping it are two different mental operations. Proctor taught that wealth sustainability requires what he called a prosperity consciousness, a deep, stable identity as a prosperous person, not someone who got lucky, not someone who hit a big year, someone for whom abundance is a natural state, a permanent frequency, a way of being rather than a temporary result. Building this identity is a long-term project. It requires the daily application of every principle discussed in this video: paradigm awareness, vibrational discipline, goal clarity, service orientation, and courage in the face of fear. There are no shortcuts, but there is a compounding effect. The longer you practice, the more natural it becomes, until prosperity stops feeling like something you are chasing and starts feeling like something you simply are. Proctor emphasized the importance of continuous learning and expansion. Complacency is the enemy of sustained prosperity. The paradigm that carried you to one level of wealth will not automatically carry you to the next. Growth requires constant investment in your mind. Books, mentors, seminars, quiet reflection, and the willingness to be wrong about what you think you know. Financial management is also part of sustained prosperity. Proctor was fond of discussing the principle of paying yourself first, setting aside a percentage of every dollar earned for investment and growth, not as discipline, but as an expression of self. Every time you invest in your own future, you send a message to your subconscious: I am worth providing for. I expect to be here long term. My prosperity is permanent. Generosity, paradoxically, is also essential to sustaining wealth. Proctor taught the ancient principle of tithing, giving a portion of what you receive, not as religious obligation, but as a practice of abundance. When you give freely, you demonstrate to your own subconscious that you live in an abundant universe. Scarcity hoards, prosperity flows. Surrounding yourself with the right people is not an optional luxury for those seeking sustained prosperity. Your environment is constantly feeding data to your subconscious. If you spend most of your time with people who are locked in scarcity thinking, who complain about money, dismiss ambition, and settle for less, their paradigm exerts a gravitational pull on yours. Proctor advocated for deliberate curation of your environment, seeking out mentors, peers, and communities that reflect the level of consciousness you are working to develop, not to abandon old relationships, but to ensure that your growth has fertile ground to take root in. Visualization remains a lifelong practice, not a beginner's exercise. Even at the highest levels of financial success, Proctor himself continued to hold mental images of the next level, to stay in forward motion, to keep the mind engaged with expansion rather than maintenance. Sustained prosperity is, in the end, a way of life. It is the commitment to grow, to serve, to think carefully, to give generously, to act boldly, and to never stop believing that the best is not behind you, but always, always ahead. Bob Proctor lived this until his final breath. He left behind a method that makes it possible for anyone who is willing to do the work to live it too. Bob Proctor used to say that most people tiptoe through life, hoping to make it safely to death. They play it small. They dream cautiously. They keep their ambitions modest enough to be safe from the pain of disappointment. And they call that living. Bob Proctor refused to do that, and he spent a lifetime refusing to let others do it either. The method you have just explored is not a collection of feel-good ideas. It is a battle-tested, life-proven, scientifically grounded system for transforming your financial reality from the inside out. Every chapter points to the same truth. The outer world is always and only a reflection of the inner world. Change the inner world. Change the paradigm. Shift the vibration. Expand the identity. Deepen the service. Act through the fear. And the outer world must follow. The invitation now is not to admire these ideas. Admiration changes nothing. The invitation is to apply them, one principle at a time, one day at a time, with a kind of patient, persistent, disciplined commitment that Bob Proctor modeled every single day. Read the goal aloud this morning. Protect the image in your mind today. Find one way to be of greater service this week. Push through the next thing that frightens you. Do not wait until you believe it completely. Begin before you believe, and let the results teach you to believe. That is how it works. That is how it has always worked. Bob Proctor is gone from this world in body, but the principles he taught are eternal because they were never his. They belong to the universe. They were operating long before he found them, and they will operate long after all of us are gone. Your only question is whether you choose to work with them. Make the choice. Do they work? And let your financial life become the living proof of what Bob Proctor always knew to be true. The only limits are the ones you have yet to dissolve.